When we recovered the Peregrine Falcon, we released those birds right across the country. But back then, life was simple. The Endangered Species Act, oh gosh, it wasn't so damn political. There was a lot of species in the Endangered Species Act, and that was sort of the focus. It became a tool that was used for controlling things, without really much thought for species per se. If someone didn't want development, they used that as a very effective tool to shut down development. So when we first had Aplomado falcons to be able to reintroduce, we wanted to release them in Texas. Texas is 87% privately held. And can you imagine going to a landowner where the habitat looked pretty good and saying, we want to introduce an endangered species on your private property? I mean, you could just hear the tumblers click in the gates, and this was not a very popular idea. Anyway, we developed this thing with Fish and Wildlife Service called the Safe Harbor Program. And we basically said, look, in return for giving us access to experimentally release these birds on your property, if and when they become established, it will be invisible to the Endangered Species Act. You will not be held responsible. You will not have what you do impacted by the Endangered Species Act, because we're not giving up anything. We have nothing right now. You have the habitat. We just want to give the species a second chance without putting you and your livelihood in jeopardy. And, when you talk to these landowners, they love wildlife, but they're also worried about making a living, putting the kids through school, and, it makes sense. And, like a lot of government things, they went too darn far, I think. And so I remember meeting with, I think it was Tobin Armstrong on the Armstrong Ranch, and I remember having lunch with him. I said, Tobin, what would it take to do this, to release Aplomado falcons on the Armstrong Ranch? And he looked at me and he goes, oh my God. He said, we can't even, as a family, we can't even agree on an oil lease, let alone something as this bizarre. I said, well, just hypothetically, what would it take? So he gave me a whole shopping list of things. And then I went back with that list basically to the Fish and Wildlife Service and said, look, I think we can do this, but this is what it's going to take. So we got this safe harbor put together, and we got some landowners to agree with it. Tobin never did. But the King Ranch did, and a bunch of big ranches. So we got, several million acres enrolled in it. I think it's still the largest of all the safe harbors. And there wasn't a single hiccup. All these pairs we have established now are all on private property.